Bear Nation, how are we doing? We are back once again for another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. And today I am lucky enough to actually be in the north of Sweden, up in Umea. And now we're able to do an actual in-person pod, being on the road. And I'm excited to sit down and chat with somebody who I met back in 2019, right? Yes. So 3 years ago in New York City. Peter Bäckström, we were at an event together that you found on Eventbrite. We met, started talking, and then collaborated on a few projects. And here we are 3 years later, finally. We were supposed to do this in 2020, I know, and you were supposed to come back to New York. Never happened, obviously, for COVID and all those things. But I'm excited to be here and sit down with you. So thank you for hosting in this space, and excited to chat about, Uminova Innovation, the impact that it's making, and some of the things that you do on the international scale. So to kick things off, why don't you say hi to Bear Nation for me?
Hello, Rob. Hello, Bear Nation. Nice to finally see you in person again, Rob. As you told, 3 years ago, we met in New York. So, having you here in Umea, it's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Me as well. And I got to fly in from Athens. I was over in Greece for a couple weeks and got to come in Saturday night. Got to experience a little Umea nightlife, and then Sunday got to go for a nice little hike up the mountains and then along the river. So I appreciate the hospitality. But what's really cool about why I'm here, right? And when we met in New York 3 years ago, we had big ideas to get you back to New York, to bring companies here, to bring me back, to bring me out here, and really create a strong cross-border alliance, right? And the work that you've done, we were talking pre-show, you've been with Uminova Innovation for over a decade. And, basically your whole career has been looking at the European Union, the European network of entrepreneurs, and how do you scale that? Not just in Europe, but beyond. When you got into this business, you had this passion for entrepreneurship, but what was it that drew you to look outside of Sweden and outside of Europe for international connections? Like, what was the driving force for you to really say, you're sitting up here in Umea, which most of my, listeners might never have heard of. What was the attraction to the international market, and why did that become so important as part of your work that you've done here?
First, on a more personal level, I'm quite curious as a person, so I like to explore new things.
Yeah.
Like if we go on a hike and I see a new hill, I would need to see what's on the other side of that hill. And if I see another hill after that, I want to see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
So I think that curiosity has in some way formed my career, and also what made me so interested in the international business. And also, in some way, also for me to a little bit get out of the comfort zone. Because it can be quite far away in one sense. Umea up north in Sweden and Germany and Central Europe. It's more than 1 hour flight to get there. So. A little bit to challenge myself, and internationally, you need to take more things into account in those kind of relationships, the language, and so on. So, that's a big part for me that I want to keep explore new things, and also challenge myself in the work. So even though I've been very long time at Uminova Innovation, I still feel that I can still challenge myself in my role by going into new markets, new industries, and so on.
Yeah. So I love that because one of my key values has always been to be curious, because when you're curious, you learn, and when you learn, you grow,
Yeah.
right? And then when you grow, we do that with authenticity and intentionality, and good things happen from that. So I'm always a big fan of curiosity as like a core key building block. And when you got into this role, you got started in the internationalization kind of competency space. But then from there, you got to kind of grow into the European Union side of things, and you were the chair on the sustainability side of things, working with the European Union. What was it like, being from the Nordics? And we'll talk about the culture shock globally after that. But being from the Nordics and thinking about Sweden itself, there's Stockholm, there's Gothenburg, there's how do I say it wrong? Malmo.
Malmö, yes.
Which are kind of the three major hubs, but then you have Umea up north. What was it like trying to, when you were on the chair and being involved, what was it like trying to communicate with, big players like Germany and France and Brussels, right, and Belgium? How did you kind of put Sweden on the map, or what was that experience like for you to work with other companies and other partners in Europe to create this large network for cross-border?
Yes, I mean, even though we are not so famous as a city, something that has caught me during the year is that we have a lot of quality here. Even though we are not so making so much noise, we still have very much quality on things that we produce, startups, research, and so on. So, I mean, that's something that I think also is a door opener when people around the world, in Europe and beyond, when they look what we actually have here, they are surprised that, okay, how can you have such great startups, such great companies, hospital, university, and be rather remote in their view, at least, from like Central Europe or US. So I mean that's also open many conversation, even though you are unknown in the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely helpful too. The cool thing about up here, you said there's a lot of quality, and you think of Umea, there's 2 universities, over 37,000 students come to school here every year. And there's a lot of innovation in the health tech, med tech space, partly because of the ecosystem that's around here. And I think that has lent a strong positioning within the larger European Union. So I'm sure it was interesting to have those conversations with your other countries and kind of make some noise. But I think quality matters, right?
Yeah.
We all know Germany has quite a large ecosystem. France, Belgium is small but scrappy and mighty with some of their growth companies. What do you think? Not just looking at Umea, but Sweden as a nation. For the work that you're doing in kind of Europe, where does Sweden really stand out from an entrepreneurial standpoint? Like, what do you see as like some of the core competencies that when you think of a Swedish company or a Swedish entrepreneur, like what can you hang your hat on from what you've seen? Because you've worked with so many entrepreneurs from this area.
A tough question, but I think it's come back to that most Swedish entrepreneurs, at least, they would like to put something good on the market that can contribute to something better.
Yeah.
And I think it's since we have quite a lot of research in Sweden, and many of the good startups with interesting technologies come from the research.
Yeah.
I mean, we have technologies that really can change things. So I think that one very important point we look at Sweden compared to to other countries. We have a special model here in Sweden where the professors and teachers at university own the research results themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more up to them to commercialize.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse, right? The strong research, I do think is key. Like from the work that I've done with Uminova Innovation and the number of companies, a lot of them are based in strong research methodologies and published authors, published papers. The negative side effect is that Swedes tend to wait too long to go to market because they need the research to tell them what to do. So how do you, in your role, how do you combat that? How do you help entrepreneurs say, hey, these are great, but we need to move, right? What has that been like for you, and how do you kind of go about your work?
I think that we try to put them in touch with potential clients and their potential market in a quite early stage to get them to realize that, okay, sometimes we need to speed up, or that they have the market feedback quite early, so they also can change strategy before they are stuck into something.
Yeah.
If they start to build something in coding, and the more that you put into it, the harder will it be to change your strategy or your product. So, I think that's very important, and what we try to encourage them to get out.
Yeah.
Get out of the building, or get out of Sweden for me then to, you have to look at a competition.
Yeah.
So that's also why we take them to big trade fairs quite early. They are not there for selling their stuff, but they are there to discover.
Yeah.
And realize that, okay, I need to compete with these 100 companies from Asia and from US.
Yep.
Okay, are we competitive enough with our solution?
So I love that, because I think sometimes it's really easy to think about needing to be perfect, and the research needs to tell me what to do. That's step 1, and then step 2 I build, and then step 3 I launch, and then step 4 I iterate, and step 5 feedback. And that's not how it works, right? You need to push them to not be perfect, right? If you wait for perfect, it's too late. So put good out and then evolve it along the way. And so your methodology of saying, keep going. So technology based?
That kind of companies, they are quite early internationally. Maybe not that they export directly or so, but their personal network contains of maybe research fellows from different countries. They're used to work in international projects. So that kind of startups, I think it's quite easy to connect with as a foreign entrepreneur, or if you think that, okay, I would like to be a part of the Swedish ecosystem, it's quite easy to connect with them if you have a specific competence, or you think that you can add something to the business they are developed in terms of your network or a past experience from sales or whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's really important. The key piece that you said there is you need to be able to articulate the exchange of goods and services, the value. You can't just be like, hey, I'm interested. It's like, hey, I think I can help you do this, or I can benefit from you from this. And so being, not super direct in a bad way, but being kind of very clear about what you think you can provide or gain, it's really quick, right? If you too much ambiguity or too much let's network and chat, so you're I don't have time for that. What do you want? I think that's a lot for I mean, similar for a lot of the Nordics, right? And just kind of be a little bit more clear with your ask and your give, and it's really easy to connect. I haven't, I've read a bunch of travel blogs, and it's like, oh, it's a hard time connecting with. I'm like, no, I haven't experienced that at all. But it's also about kind of how you interact and understanding culturally how to communicate and to ask. So I think that's really cool that, and that's something I think the flip side, having you having had the opportunity to travel to London and Berlin and New York and Denver and San Francisco and Minnesota and, all these, different places, you can really help these companies understand how to communicate with what their ask is, what their goals are. How do you connect with Americans? How do you connect with the Germans? How do you connect with the Baltics? How do you connect with Southern Europe? Like what are the ways to go out and create those connections, and then having that network is huge. What, as we kind of close out here, what do you think have been some of the, keys to your success in terms of building a network? So if somebody's like, hey, Peter, I think that you've built a great network. How have you gone about that? What are what advice would you give to, an entrepreneur that's looking to build a network? Like, what are your secrets or your tips or best practices?
Well, I mean, first, I think you have to look yourself in the mirror, and okay, if you connect with people, how would yourself would like to be treated? I mean, so I mean that's the first. I mean, okay, do you respond to people try to connect to you, and if you reach out to someone, okay, is it just like a cold email with stupid questions, or have you done your homework related to what we talked about earlier? So you really have something that can attract that people, that guy on the or girl on the other side. That okay, I have this competence. I'm contacting you for this reason. So because I mean, like LinkedIn, and it's quite easy to get friends, or so you can have a long list of people, but I mean, if they are not relevant for you, there are no use.
Yeah, it's easy to connect. It's hard to create meaningful connection. And like you said, understanding how you want to be treated and treating others that way, and just being clear. Hey, this is, saw this, love this. I think this would be a great opportunity for us to have a chat about XYZ. When you do that and really focus on that way, it comes across as authentic and genuine, but also clear. Nothing pisses me off more than somebody's like, hey, Rob, great profile. Would love to get 30 minutes to pick your brain. What do I have to? I mean, I don't have just 30 minutes for everybody to pick my brain. Like, why do you want to pick my brain? What's the thing that you're trying to get? What's the big question? And I think that you do a great job at highlighting that, and you make it easier for the entrepreneurs here to learn that lesson, not so much the hard way, and do it the right way.
Yes, and then also, I mean, the serendipity part of networking.
Yeah,
I mean, you can plan and prospect and all that stuff, but to some extent also you need to take a chance on some contacts, and it might not be the perfect match, but okay, if I give it 1 hour or whatever, it might turn up that this person is in contact with another person that is the perfect contact for you, that can open a door, or know the wheezy guy that you love to get in touch with. So, I mean, you need to be selective, but open-minded.
Yeah. I think that, I love that you say that. You have to be selective with building your network, but open-minded to accept serendipity to happen, right? And I think that serendipity comes from putting good out and like being open to receive that. And it reminds me of a story you told pre-show where you were on a flight. I remember where to or where from, and the person next to you was like a Finnish American lady and was in the sport tech space. And like 2 years, cool, you had a good conversation, exchange contact, and that was it. And then 2 years later, company came through here. You reached out back to her, connected them, and like they had a really good like partnership and did some really cool things. Like, you just never know when that network ask is, and it's important to keep your network fresh. And it might be 30 days, 90 days, a year, 2 years. Not everything needs to be immediate. I think it's such an expectation that we meet somebody and it's like, okay, here's my give and here's my ask. And I get this a lot, and I'm told all the time, it's like, well, if you don't have an ask, something's wrong with you. And it's like, well, sometimes I talk to you and I don't have an ask for you today. My ask is going to be in 60 days from now, 6 months from now. Like right now, I'm at a point where I'm working on a project where I'm calling in some favors from people I haven't talked to in a year, and it's like I knew I was holding that favor for something, but now's the time, and when I want to go request that or kind of put that goodwill out. And I think we live in such a society where it's like, needs to always be immediate. Understand that not everything is immediate.
No.
Understand that not every connection needs to be immediate. Like, build relationships for the long term. And on a global scale, you're not in this business for over a decade doing this and having, accomplished the things you have if you didn't create really good relationships. Otherwise, you would have just burnt out. Okay. We look at the next, say, 5 years, half decade. What do you hope to accomplish at Uminova Innovation? You yourself, what does Peter hope to accomplish in the next half decade here?
Well, I mean, hopefully we still are one of the highest ranked incubators in Sweden. I mean, that's a little bit of a quality mark that we keep in the top of the ranking. And I mean, for me, working with international business, of course, I want more of our companies to do export and international business. And hopefully we can create more platforms, contact points, programs that can help them to go faster forward when it comes to the international part. So other countries, or I mean, we try to really listen to the company where they have the best fit, and we try to support them towards that market. So
love that. I think that's I think that's all really great opportunity. And the only thing I'll put on your list is that you finally bring the soft landing program that we wanted to do in 2020, bring the companies over to New York so we can, hook them up and have a good program, but also go out for some beers in New York. Even though I know you're coming to New York, and by the time this is played, I don't know if you'll have already been and gone or not, but coming to New York soon, which is going to be a lot of fun. Bare Nation, thanks for listening to the bare necessities of entrepreneurship. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review.